What up, Razzballers? Welcome back to the program. We got a big one for you tonight. We are back with a Wednesday night quad box. Dun, da, da, da. Moved over one from Tuesday. Dynasty diehards holding it down yesterday. Had to give them a bite of the action with all the free agent moves going down. I cannot remember a season in 6 years that I've been doing this as an analyst on shows, but at 20 plus years as a really intense football fan, I cannot remember a free agent period where we've had so many hot names moving teams, especially at the running back position. We have a lot to get into today. I am your host for the evening. My name is Sky Guasco. You can find me on Twitter at Sky Guasco, joined by the three amigos. We got Maddie Styles up in the box with me as well. That's Styles08. Derek Favret down in the bottom there, Derek _ Favret. And of course, captain of the mothership, Mr. Bobby Lamarco, a.k.a. Bobby Two Parms, in the bottom there as well. We got a lot going on for you this evening, folks. I'm going to open up just rifling off name and new team of all of the new movement today and a little bit of yesterday. Bob and I did have kind of a breaking news podcast Monday evening to recap all of Monday's news because everything kicked off so hot. Dynasty diehards took it from there, and now we're going to recap as a group tonight as well. Additionally to that, we all have a riser in our respective rankings. If you've been following us so far in the offseason, each one of us is carrying an individual position through the offseason. So we're going to take turns and give you our riser based on our current rankings in redraft form. And then Bob is going to take a dynasty aspect to those individual players for you as well. Let's go around the horn real quick. We'll introduce all the boys. Of course, you can find everything Razzball at Razzball NFL. That's RAZZBALL NFL on Twitter. You can find us on the podcast anywhere you listen to your audio. That's the Razzball Fantasy Football Podcast. And of course, smash that like button and give us a rate and review right here on the YouTubes as well. So many of you lately have been coming over from Twitter, which we much appreciate. The Xbox, if you will, not a sponsor. But please feel free to give us some love on the YouTube channel as well. We appreciate that so you don't miss all of our live videos and articles for free on football.razzball.com. Formalities out of the way, boys. Let's have some fun. Matt, Derek, Bob, great to have the quad box back in action. Very excited. I'm going to list off all the names. I'm going to do it by position here. I'd like to get just a quick reaction from one player, maybe for 1 second, see how you guys are feeling. We're going to start at the quarterback position. Not a lot of fun names in this move. We already talked about Kirk Cousins. We talked about Russell Wilson, Baker Mayfield, Gardner Minshew. Sammy Darnold goes to the Vikings, replacing Kirk Cousins. Marcus Mariota, go Ducks, is now on the Commanders. Drew Lock, the number one quarterback for the New York Football Giants. Love to see that. And Jacoby Brissett back with the New England Patriots, who he started his career with. Then we have the running back position, Derrick Henry. Big signing, of course, with the Baltimore Ravens. A lot of us saw that coming. It is official. Joe Mixon traded to the Houston Texans. Zach Moss replaces him in Cincinnati. Nyheim Hines lands up with the Browns. They have a lot of wishy-wash running back situation there. And Chase Edmonds goes to the Buccaneers. Calvin Ridley, the most recent landing spot with the Titans. Big duo there with him and Nuke Hopkins. Deontay Johnson traded to the Carolina Panthers. Darnell Mooney moves to the Falcons. Devontae Parker with the Eagles. Couple of tight ends. Irv Smith goes and backs up Travis Kelce with the Chiefs. Gerald Everett lands with the Bears. Mike Gesicki to the Bengals. And Harrison Bryant to the Raiders. A lot moving here. Let's kick it off with Calvin Ridley, the most recent big name kick. Matt, I'm going to kick it to you first. You just had your article drop today with all of your wide receiver reactions. Everybody can, of course, check that out at football.razzball.com for free. But Matt, give us your first initial reaction to Calvin Ridley with the Titans. What does this mean overall for that wide receiver core now?
It's terrible news for Calvin Ridley. Until I see Will Levis do something than a 4-touchdown game one time in his career. Now, mind you, he's only had one season or the better part of one season. But, yeah, I don't like this for Calvin Ridley. And I'll tell you, the news broke. I was smashing 10 wings and 2 pitchers of beer, splitting them with the wife. Guess what? I was more into the wings than I was the Calvin Ridley signing. Clearly, Ridley took the money and doesn't care about winning. So I'm not a fan of this signing for anybody but Calvin Ridley.
Maybe possibly, it sounds like more important than the wings and Calvin Ridley. Matt, just really quick, bone in, bone out wings.
Usually I like boneless, but boneless makes you look a little ladylike. So I went traditional wings today.
Got it.
Half half wet rub.
In front of the misses. You got to establish masculinity. I
Yeah.
respect that. Derek, let's
Yeah,
kick it down to you, my man. Matt is not feeling the Calvin Ridley signing. Is Will Levis liking this signing? He's now got two, Pro Bowler at least, or used to be, options there with Nuke Hopkins and Calvin Ridley. Do you like this for the young quarterback?
Yeah, opposite of my chicken wing eating colleague up there, I actually think it's a good move, not only just for Will Levis, but for the whole team. They added Tony Pollard with Tajay Spears. I mean, that could be a really good 1-2 punch in the backfield. Now you've got three receivers. Don't forget Treylon Burks is there. I mean, he's been in and out, hurt, but he's on the verge of being a big time receiver. And now that he's got both Ridley and Hopkins to shy some coverage away, I think there's an opportunity here for this team and for Will Levis. I mean, he'll be 25 going into a sophomore season. I mean, so he's got some growing up to do, but he has the opportunity. And of course, they signed Mason Rudolph as well. He's certainly not going to push him, but there's some mentorship, I think, going on there that'll be going on in the quarterback room. So overall, I think this is a good move for Will Levis. I think he might be an underrated, certainly in a 2-quarterback league. He's going to be someone I think you could target and expect some upside. I've moved him up from 24 to 20 in my rankings. So he's still down there, but top 20 quarterback going into the season with these new weapons. And I think there's maybe a chance he could even be top 15.
We did see in his debut 4 touchdowns. So we also saw that from Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota. So we don't know what the long-term goal is there, but does have some upside. So in Superflex leagues, he's at least got the upside, which we like to see. Speaking of the Titans, King Henry, a longtime Titan, no longer a Titan. He now goes to the Baltimore Ravens. We had discussed this. I had predicted this in my running back article here. A lot of these guys I got wrong, quote unquote, just with where they landed. But a lot of the industry had Derrick Henry going to either the Ravens or the Cowboys. But the Cowboys forgot it was free agent season. They literally have not signed a single player. So I'm going to save my comments for that another time. Derrick Henry, though, lands in Baltimore. 13 rushing touchdowns last year, folks, for Gus Edwards. I think some of us would think that Derrick Henry's better than Gus Edwards. Derrick Henry should have 15-plus touchdowns if he gets healthy. He lands with the Ravens, 2 years, $16 million. Love that for the King. Bob, I'm going to put you on the spot here before we get into risers and fallers. Of all the names we mentioned, we just talked pretty heavy about the Titans. We talked about Derrick Henry. Of all the other names, Joe Mixon, Zach Moss, any of the other wide receivers, Deontay Johnson moved as well, our boy Darnell Mooney, any of the tight ends, your boy Drew Lock, I'm sure the jersey's in the mail. Anybody else that floated around in the last 24 hours you want to cover we haven't talked about yet?
And Saquon Barkley went to the Eagles, Bob.
Oh, yeah, Aaron Jones also went to the Vikings.
Get him, guys.
All right.
I beat you to the punch.
Fight.
I already went off. On Tuesday. I'm super excited for the 7-10 Giants season and Brian Daboll gets fired. But what's your thoughts about Aaron Jones with the Vikings? Are you excited to see him twice a year? You gonna hold up a sign at Lambeau for him, or what? What's the deal?
We love Showtime 33. Shout out to the sombrero and the glasses. I think it's a mistake. We can kick this over to our running back guru, and I'll let him tell me if Josh Jacobs is going to be the guy we need or if Aaron Jones was the guy we need. Green Bay gets younger. They still need another running back. I don't think it's Patrick Taylor, but because A.J. Dillon's not coming back, I don't think you're going to bring A.J. Dillon back. So I watched all positive highlights of Josh Jacobs and said this is a good thing. And then I remember every season what Aaron Jones would do to the Dallas Cowboys and endear himself to the entire fantasy football and NFL world by just smashing touchdowns against every number 1 rated Cowboys defense. And so I'm sad. I will retire the sombrero.
Pour one out for our boy Aaron Jones. Some big time moves. It's been interesting, guys, too. Saquon Barkley goes to the Eagles. It's in division, right? You have Aaron Jones going to the Vikings. That's in division. You have DeAndre Swift, who used to play for the Lions, going to the Bears, pseudo in division. I think it's really interesting that has happened this year, because a lot of times in sports, you don't see that happening to direct competitors. But it seems like a lot of these guys are kind of just playing musical chairs a bit there. So, Bob, if there's not another name that you want to get into, Joe Mixon or anybody else that we've already talked about, we'll get into our risers.
No, I'm good. I think we can get to our risers.
Let's do it. Jamie, good evening, my man. Quick note from Jamie, of course, good friend of the show. Boneless wings are called chicken nuggets, bro, which I think that's facts, right? I mean, that makes sense. There's no bone there. So hot take there.
I do have one take that's not anything football related. I like to get my wings well done. I like a little crisp on those. Honestly, I've developed a little bit of the dry rub situation with the well done wing, and I like the sauce on the side. I don't know what's going on, but I like the crispier wing. That's my big take there. Let's move on to the risers.
I love it.
You must have you have small hands, I'm guessing.
Anytime, Matt. Anytime. Let's do it.
Hey, man. You know, Joe Burrow has small hands too, and I don't think we're questioning his motives. Let's move on here to the risers. Derek, I'm going to kick it down to you, bud. Let's get into the quarterback position. When we talk risers, we're looking at a player that you had previous to free agency, where you had them ranked preseason. Now the dust has settled 99%. There's still a couple names at large, if you will, at each position. Joe Flacco, Ryan Tannehill, namely at the quarterback position, Jimmy Garoppolo, I guess, as well. But who's a riser? Who has grown the most in your rankings based on their new position, or somebody had vacated a spot so they moved up a little bit?
Yeah, no, for me, it's going to be Gardner Minshew. Ironically, not some of the, not some of the other bigger names, but yeah, Gardner Minshew. And the reason for that is I pegged him as going to a situation where he was going to be a backup, because that's really what he's been, and he's filled that role pretty well. I didn't really picture him getting essentially handed the starting nod, and I think that's what's going to happen in Vegas. Yeah, sure, Aiden O'Connell's there, and some think that he's the heir apparent, but they gave Minshew a 2-year, $25 million contract, 15 of it guaranteed. I don't think you give that to someone who you expect to be your backup. He's going to, at worst, he's going to be even in an even competition for the starting gig. I actually think he gets the leg up, and he's got the experience. And I think Aiden O'Connell would do well to back him up, actually. So, yeah, Gardner Minshew is going to be my biggest riser, of the quarterbacks. I have him up to 28 in my rankings. And again, once he locks that down, I could see that even going a little bit higher. So especially if they keep Devontae Adams.
Still a back-end super flex option at quarterback. Matt, do you think that they bring anybody else in, or just Aiden O'Connell? And, they got rid of Jimmy Garoppolo, probably won't draft anybody at this point. So you think he's pretty safe? He just needs to beat out Aiden O'Connell, essentially, correct?
Yeah, and I think that Bob and his big hands could probably beat out Aiden O'Connell with a good training camp. But it keeps Devontae Adams squarely at number 10 in my rankings. Minshew, Washington State University Cougar. Shout out to the folks in Pullman. He is smart enough to know where his bread's going to be buttered in Vegas, and that's going to be our guy Devontae, and your favorite guy coming off of the Josh Jacobs departure, and that's Zamir White. So I think Minshew is going to be a good addition. Like Derek said, $15 million guaranteed means he's probably got the nod for the start. Jimmy's going to be released. He's also got a 2-game suspension headed his way. So I like this. I don't love it, but I will tell you that I love it for another reason when you get to my riser. But if you want to hit on Zamir White, now I think might be a good time, because I'm all over him as well.
Yeah, I'm going to jump on that real quick. And then, Bob, I would love for you to break down kind of the Raiders in general, dynasty-wise. There's a lot of moving parts. Obviously, we got the legend Devontae Adams, but a lot of kind of new faces over there as well. My boy Josh Jacobs, 7, 12, 9, 12, 6 touchdowns over the last 5 years. Zamir White is better than Josh Jacobs. So I expect those numbers to be similar. probably better. I almost picked Josh Jacobs, but I have kind of a contractual thing where like I can't on the show, but I do like Josh Jacobs much better in Green Bay than I do in Vegas. For the record, I said it once, not going to say it again. Zamir White, after the bye week in 13 over the last 4 weeks, again, let me remind you folks that Josh Jacobs took your fantasy playoffs off. He just, had vacation with the fams a little early. That's fine. But Zamir White did not. He showed up best he could for you. The rookie threw it down a rookie and a half, I should say. RB 12, 16, 16, and 19. He had 20 plus carries in 3 of those 4 games. He had 20 plus touches in all 4 games there. He had 145 rushing yards in week 16 versus the Chiefs, 118 versus the Denver Broncos. Scored a handful of touchdowns for you as well. I'm really excited to see Zamir White get the full bulk of the work this season. I do expect them, because he's the only one in Vegas right now, I do expect them to bring in 1 or 2 day 3 running backs just for depth. They probably sign a couple of running backs off the scrap heap in free agency once the draft is over. He's not going to be alone in the backfield, but he is the number 1, I think, by a long shot right now. And I'm very excited about that. Sounds like Matt is as well. Derek's got a couple head nods too. Go for it.
Yeah. Let me just add something real quick. This time last year, what we were thinking Kyron Williams is what Zamir White is right now in my mind.
Nice.
Yeah. So I could totally see him if he gets the chance. So he's going to be a guy you want in fantasy.
So you heard it here, folks. Derek is predicting Zamir White to be the number 2 running back in all of fantasy football. So make sure you draft him on draft day. Enjoy that budget. Bob, what's up with the dynasty aspect of the Las Vegas Football Raiders?
Yeah, just got to remember, if you go check out our dynasty trade chart that Richard handles, we also have it up on the site. We also have Nate's top 200. Those will be updated constantly throughout the offseason. But this is kind of the time where there's a little uncertainty about these guys because, for my opinion, let's just talk with Zamir White first. Zamir White, in my opinion, is a top 24 running back in Dynasty right now. A lot of people are not going to view him that. Guys in that area like Joe Mixon, Najee Harris, those kind of players, he's in that conversation. And so what does that mean from a trade aspect? That means it's a late first. So if you're a win now team and you look at the landscape of your dynasty league and you see a bottom 5 or 6 team has Zamir White on their roster, this is a time to go out and say, hey, you know what? Here's my first round pick. I'll take another stud running back. You could keep building for the future. This is a perfect opportunity to do that, especially because he was the RB9 in those weeks that Sky talked about overall. So he has a top 10 upside. Luke Getsy comes in. I know Luke Getsy isn't. I think Deontay Foreman makes a ton of sense for the Bears as a backup. For the Raiders as a backup from his time with Luke Getsy. He's a free agent. He can come over. Maybe they actually go try to get Khalil Herbert. I don't know. But I think Luke Getsy will utilize him as an early down thumper, and I think that's going to be perfect for what he needs to do. On the flip side, when it comes to Gardner Minshew, I think that, and Sky hears me, I say this all the time. I like when a good backup quarterback like Gardner Minshew comes in because it's a benchmark now. So if Aiden O'Connell beats him out, we know Aiden O'Connell at least is going to be serviceable enough to support guys like Devontae Adams. I think Adams is set up top 10. I think the question comes, do you still like Jacoby Myers as a wide receiver 3? I like Gardner Minshew, but he doesn't have a big track record of supporting a second receiver for fantasy football. It's usually just last year it was Michael Pittman, Josh Downs kind of dabbled a little bit. If you go back to the Jaguars days, you really only think about DJ Chark. You don't think about a second guy necessarily. So I do think from a dynasty standpoint, Gardner Minshew, by the way, is probably worth a late second round pick. If you are a win now team and a team has Gardner Minshew, who is not a good team, this is another opportunity for you to maybe trade a late second if you're in a super flex or a 2 QB league to go get Gardner Minshew to solidify that QB spot.
I like it. So we got some low key, as the kids say, some low key Raider hype early in the season here with a couple of different moves. Maddie, you had mentioned you have a riser at the wide receiver position, not on the Raiders. Who is your riser?
I think with Minshew departing Indianapolis and Michael Pittman grabbing the bag and Anthony Richardson coming back, I was happy to move Pittman up to where I previously had T. Higgins to number 15 overall. Higgins moves down to 19 because of the the wide receiver diva that he is now showing everybody, right? He didn't like the money, so now or the tag, so now he wants to be traded out of Cincinnati. So I like Pittman in the fact that he is solidified. He's got his young quarterback who is if he can stay healthy, is obviously going to put up better numbers than he did last year. We didn't see as much as we wanted to see from AR-15. So give me Michael Pittman moving up. And I know we're going to get into fallers a little bit later, but I'm absolutely devastated. Derek and I have rostered this guy for many years, but Deontay Johnson,
he gone.
It's just brutal move for him, and he is on the Antonio Brown train. He's in the first car at this point in my mind, so not a fan of how that shook out. We can talk about that down the line, but I just at least had to get it off my chest that just a brutal move to Carolina. Just awful. Just awful for the guy.
Got it. If they had Kerry Collins still, I think he would have been fine, but not with Bryce Young.
Or Sam Darnold. Or Baker Mayfield. Or Derek Anderson.
I think this is a great way, Matt, by the way. Fantastic. That's like the perfect pivot point, Matt. That's how you handle expediting the timeline of the show. Matt's like, I'll take care of both topics, one shot, wrap it up in the one. Now we'll spin it down to Derek for his faller in a second. But let me talk a little bit about Dynasty before we do that. So Pittman, I actually have a sell high candidate. I don't think you sell Pittman in Dynasty just to sell him. And just hear me out. I think Anthony Richardson is going to be an absolute stud. But we have seen in the past, like Pittman's value right now is probably in Dynasty Fantasy Football a wide receiver 1. And when we saw guys like Cam Newton, Lamar Jackson, they don't really support elite wide receiver 1s for fantasy. They're very good dual threats. You know, we do see some really good tight end seasons like Mark Andrews, Greg Olsen from those times, but very rarely do these elite dual threat quarterbacks, you know, support a top 12 wide receiver. So I do think that if you could sell high, some of the things I liked was a late first round pick in Rashid Rice. If you get a team that is, you know, really into Pittman and you could get a guy like Rashid Rice and a late first, I think you could definitely pull that off. Same thing goes with guys like George Pickens. I think George Pickens coming off a relatively down season. If you're not able to get a guy like Rashid Rice, you can get a late first round pick and also George Pickens now with the targets opening up with Deontay Johnson gone. I do like that, but it's only a sell high. I'm not selling Pittman in general, but I do think if you can get really good value there, especially getting younger at the position and a late first, I think I would definitely make that deal. As for Deontay Johnson, I think the biggest problem is like when you think of Dave Canales' offenses, you think of vertical, big outside receivers for the most part, or guys that are good vertical threats. Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, Mike Evans. Those are the guys that really have flourished in this kind of offense over the last half decade. And that's not what we think about Deontay Johnson. He did have a career high 14 yards per reception this year. But to be honest with you, I just don't see the correlation. He's never been an elite deep threat. Maybe Dave Canales kind of, you know, I don't know. He runs a 4.5 40. He's not a speed guy. So I don't know how this is going to work. Plus Bryce Young off the kind of a disastrous season. I do think the problem right now is Deontay Johnson's value is probably extremely low. In our Dynasty trade chart, he's still kind of there as a late first round pick value. If you could get a late first for Deontay, I would take that all day, personally. I think more realistically, though, a late second and then emerging wide receivers like Khalil Shakir, who could be walking into a really big role with Gabe Davis gone, would be an interesting trade package for Deontay Johnson. Michael Wilson with the Cardinals. I know Marvin Harrison will probably be with the Cardinals most likely, but I do think Kyler Murray could support a second weapon, second wide receiver. I know they also have Trey McBride as well, but I like Michael Wilson or Wan'Dale Robinson. Listen, the Giants love not getting elite wide receivers, so they're just going to keep the Giants get Drew Lock. I'm not going to do this today. I'm not going to do it. My point is Wan'Dale Robinson could be a really good PPR asset, so a late second and Wan'Dale for Deontay, I like as well.
Man, Hakeem,
and think about this.
Plaxico Burress.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh doesn't even draft. Victor Cruz, so many legendary wide receivers for the Giants.
The Giants do good when they have a good wide receiver, and then they're like, well, you know what? What if we didn't have a good wide receiver? I wonder how we would do then. And then they do bad, and they're like, whoa, no, let's double down. Let's also get rid of our leading receiver who was a running back last year, and let's run it back. We got Isaiah McKenzie now, baby. We got Drew Lock listening to rap music on the sidelines. That's going to really help Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is going to look over there, be inspired by Drew Lock and dominate for the entire season. I am so excited to be a Giants fan.
Oh, good energy, Bob. Matt, you were saying something until you were rudely cut off.
Tell me this. So let's say Pittsburgh makes that trade because it's a heavy wide receiver class in 24. They don't draft till 20. So that tells me they have to trade up, right? Who do we think? Harrison, Neighbors, Dunze, and then there's two other studs that are in the draft class. Do they have to trade up from 20 to get one of those guys?
I was talking about the Cardinals drafting Harrison, not the Steelers.
Yeah, no, so for sure they're going to end up with Harrison, but Pittsburgh would have to move up to get one of those other four.
Arthur Smith does not, if you think of Arthur Smith, he did not necessarily lean all into wide receivers, right? So they might have thought Deontay Johnson was a luxury. If you look at the Falcons the last few seasons, it was basically just Drake London. And then they had Kyle Pitts. They tried to utilize him, but they already have the Pat Freiermuth to replace that position. And then they have the two running backs in the backfield to kind of mirror Tyler Algier and Bijan from last year. So I think they already have the pieces in place to make an Arthur Smith offense work right now. That being said, guys like Calvin Austin could be deeper sleepers, but I do think the Steelers have been so good at drafting wide receivers, especially in like the second round. I could see them taking a second round receiver this year, but from a right now, win now type viewpoint, I think George Pickens definitely gets a boost.
Yep. I agree. Let's move on here. We can wrap up with our fallers. I know we already went into Matt's. That's Deontay Johnson. We talked about Michael Pittman, Gardner Minshew, and Zamir White as our risers. Our faller at wide receiver is going to be Deontay Johnson. Derek, because we love Jamie, I have to skip you, right? Jamie, this is for you, buddy. My faller at the running back position is Chicago Bear second stringer, DeAndre Swift. Let's hope that your boy Rashawn Johnson is the truth. I don't know that he is today, but he might be soon. DeAndre Swift was awesome. He had career highs across the board in games played at 16, rush attempts 229, which is 70 more than he's had yet, 1,000 rushing yards, which is 400 more than he's ever had. But his receiving totals, were cut in half basically with the Eagles, and he scored the least amount of touchdowns. He's trending in the wrong direction. Still, he was the running back 17 overall and RB 24 in points per game. I've mentioned this too many times on the program. 9 times he was tackled inside the 1 yard line, Calvin Johnson-esque every single time. Jalen Hurts, tush push, rushing touchdown. You give him half of those, he's a top 10 running back easy. But now he goes to the Chicago Bears, number 1 offensive line in the NFL, a bottom, 5 offensive line in the NFL. Not sure what's going on at quarterback, rookie situation, unpredictable coaching. Don't love it. Jamie, I'm with you. We're pouring one out for DeAndre Swift. Bob, quick notes on a dynasty perspective on DeAndre Swift, and then Derek, we're going to go to you for your quarterback.
I might be a little different on this because I feel like everybody thinks this about DeAndre Swift, but if Caleb Williams is anything like they say he is, they got DJ. Well, we'll see. I mean, honestly, they got the 101. I don't know what to do with Justin Fields yet. I personally think that there is a level of a buy low opportunity for DeAndre Swift. I think if you look at last year adjusted line yards, the Chicago Bears were actually above average on the offensive line. They're bringing in Shane Waldron, who has shown that he could feature a foundational runner. Kenneth Walker was fantastic last year when he got all the reps last year. I could see Roshan Johnson just being the Zach Charbonnet, Charbonnet. And
nailed it. Just stick with the first one. You do it every time. You nail it, and then you blow it after the fact.
I get nervous. Matt will lose his sting at me. I can't do this. I get nervous now. He's always lurking. Now he lives in Tampa. He's angry in Tampa. I don't know what the hell's going on anymore.
Too much sun, maybe.
It is. It's with the air mattress. Air mattress has turned him into a monster. But anyway, my point is, I think there might be a little bit of a DeAndre Swift buy low window here. Because I do think that, if Caleb Williams is solid, they have DJ Moore, they have Cole Kmet, they have some weapons building there, which they haven't had for a long time. And the other thing, too, is Shane Waldron comes in and they immediately go and get DeAndre Swift. So I do think that there's something there as well. Honestly, if I could get, here's a good trade that I thought about. I really like, even though I'm saying buy low, but if I could get a Zamir White or a Zach Moss in a late second for DeAndre Swift, I actually like that because – the running backs, I actually very high on Zach Moss. That's a player we'll probably talk about on tomorrow's show. but Zamir White too. Not as big of names, but if I can get those 2 running backs and a second-round pick, maybe mid to late for DeAndre Swift, I would definitely pull the trigger on that.
Folks, I think it goes without saying that we have our opinions. We have a riser, we have a faller, we have players we like, we have players we don't, we have situations we like, we have situations we don't. Some of us take a lot of this personally based on certain players. The reality is every single player, no matter what, has a certain point where they become of value. Whether you want them on your team or not is up to you. But if you think DeAndre Swift is a second rounder in dynasty drafts, for some reason, I think he's a 5th rounder, and he drops to the 6th round, I'm definitely drafting him, right? Like, it makes sense at that point. So it's all perspective, but it really just trying to, understand where we think these guys are at this point. But of course, we have many months left of summer. We'll see who the starter is, how Roschon Johnson happens. And Justin Fields might just stay in Chicago at this point, because where's he going to go? The trade value has dropped out from underneath him. So we'll see what happens in the next month with the NFL draft now, the next thing on the docket. Derek, let's kick it down to you. You've been waiting so patiently, my man. Thank you very much. Who is your faller at the quarterback position? You had Gardner Minshew as your riser. Who is your faller?
Yeah, just in one quick note, I just want to make Bobby feel good before I get to my faller.
We all do.
Deontay Johnson, last year of his contract, he goes and reestablishes himself as a top receiver in Carolina, just in time for the Giants to throw the money at him next year in free agency. How about that?
Love
it's
that.
Kenny Galladay all over again. I can't wait.
Yeah. So for my faller, this is probably pretty obvious to everyone. When you bring in, the quarterback 10, or at least in my list, someone's gonna catch the opposite side of that. That's Desmond Ridder. Some probably would argue he wasn't even the backup. He's not even the number 2 there now. He's going to be the number 3 behind Taylor Heineke. But any usefulness for Desmond Ridder at this point, barring an injury to Kirk Cousins, he is definitely the biggest loser in the quarterback side of this. He goes from a potential starter to, second or even third string. So he's way down, number 42 in my rankings now.
Oof, maybe a dynasty stash at best. Bob, is there any reason to have Desmond Ridder on a roster other than a deep dynasty league?
I'm going to throw a curveball here, and I'm going to say my dynasty faller is Kirk Cousins. I actually think that moving from, first of all, not only is he dealing with this injury that he has just got this year, but he's going from Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hawkinson to Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Darnell Mooney, and Bijan Robinson. Now, I do think Atlanta has solid weapons, but they're not elite like he just had with the Vikings. So I think especially if you're in a lot of dynasty leagues or super flex, pretty much all of them I've been in so far, is that if I could get a late first-round pick for Kirk Cousins, this draft is very deep, especially at the quarterback position. There's a lot of guys people are excited about, even Bo Nix type players. Penix from Washington are not even the main guys that people are excited about if I want to go pick up a quarterback later. But we talked about it a little bit earlier. Gardner Minshew in a late second-round pick. If I want to just have an extra quarterback QB2 and I pick up a second-round pick, I actually like that deal. And then Daniel Jones. If you're in a league that everyone's giving up on Daniel Jones, just like the Giants have, I actually wouldn't mind trying to steal him away, grabbing an extra pick maybe in the second round to trade away Kirk Cousins, because he is going to be 36 this season at some point, and I do think that there is a slight downtick in his weapons coming off a major injury. Maybe he's a sell right now.
I love it.
Yeah,
Final comments around the board, gentlemen, before we get out of here. Matty Styles, I'll start with you. If you'd like any type of, Aaron Jones, sombrero talk, or you already got that off your chest. Anybody else? We did not talk much about Joe Mixon. We didn't talk about some of these other running backs, some of these wide receivers. There are a couple other moves. If you guys want to jump in from Monday, say your piece now. We'll go around the horn. Matty Styles, we'll go to Derek and then Bob.
Derek, get out your pen and paper. If Deontay Johnson has that career year, and if he gets the bag in New York signing with the Giants, I will buy you a porterhouse baked potato salad, and the old fashions will flow like wine.
Wow.
You heard it here, folks.
Jeez.
It sounds kind of romantic, actually.
Yeah, you heard it here.
I was gonna say, like, is this like a one-on-one situation? Is it like friends?
Oh no, Bob's invited. I'm just not buying Bob's dinner.
Oh, all right. That's sweet. Thanks.
In fact, you'll have to sit and watch Derek eat You'll have to watch Derek eat that meal. You're going to be sick.
I'm flying out for that. Yeah. That would be great.
And I'm going to savor every bite of that too.
I feel like this is turning into a show for a different type of channel. Derek, final thoughts on free agency day 3.
Yeah. So my article comes out tomorrow where I talk about all the day one signings, but one that we haven't talked about and I like kind of an under radar pick is Jameson Winston going to the Browns.
Yeah, Joe Flacco.
Yeah, I've never been a Deshaun Watson truther, and I'm not now. And we saw what what the backup for the Browns could do when Watson was out. So I really like this for Jameis Winston. I think if he gets a shot, that he could also propel that team to a playoff berth, just like we saw this year. So I like that. I like that signing for him, for the Browns and for Winston.
Love that. Bobo, final thoughts.
I will say Joe Flacco going to the Colts. I mean, like, if we're going to talk about, hey, Anthony Richardson, you better watch yourself, my friend, because Joe Flacco is one injury away from just taking the Colts to the Super Bowl. That's all I got to say to that.
Love it.
I'm going to talk about Mike Williams being cut. I know he's not. This is just opening the door. I really think that Josh Palmer is someone that I would like to get my hands on across the board. I do think that Jim Harbaugh is going to be really good for this offense. I do think that, and by the way, no Austin Eckler too. Replacing Eckler with a guy like Gus Edwards, not a pass catcher. Now you lose Mike Williams, just opening up the targets here. I know Keenan Allen's a stud, but I think Josh Palmer will be interesting because of that Mike Williams. But hey, I wonder where Mike Williams go. Maybe he'll go to the Giants, play 3 games, and that's all we'll get. And then we'll go back to Darius Slayton again.
I love it. Still have Marquise Brown at large, unless we've had breaking news during the show I'm unaware of. But I know that's a player Bob specifically has been excited about through the last couple of weeks. Yet to land, as of my knowledge, Tyler Boyd, Odell Beckham, Curtis Samuel, a couple other players there at the wide receiver position. A.J. Dillon and maybe a couple other guys there at running back as well could end up landing. And like I said, we got Ryan Tannehill, maybe Jimmy to go there as well. Folks, that's going to do it for the Quad Box this week. We are doing this every single week. We're mixing it up here this week. Of course, we got the Dynasty Diehards. Make sure you tune in and find their show as well. They have a strictly Dynasty approach to what they're doing. It is Dynasty season, as we all know. We like to kind of do a hybrid version because we're also doing studying and paying attention and looking ahead for redraft as well. So some of us do a little more redraft than we do Dynasty. We're getting ready for best ball season, blah, blah, blah. We're also getting ready for baseball season. That's right, folks. You can also listen to the baseball version of the podcast right here on Razzball, the flagship of the program. So check out all the boys over there on the baseball side there as well. We have opening day on Thursday, March 28th, if you don't count Seoul, Korea. It's been an absolute blast once again with all my boys. We got Bobby Lamarco, Derek Favrette, Matty Styles. I'm your host, Sky Guasco. You can find everything at Razzball NFL on X. All of our articles, Matt dropped today, Derek drops tomorrow, I drop the day after that on football.razzball.com. You can find us on the podcast as well, Razzball Fantasy Football Podcast, and of course on the YouTube channel. We'll catch you next time, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. We are out of here.